When I asked Peyton what his role was in that tight end room, he said, I'm the juice. I'm the guy who's going to bring the energy. I'm the guy who's going to do whatever it takes so my other teammates can succeed, and that's my favorite thing about him. He's such a selfless player. He's willing to get out there to do the dirty work. He told me, I'm not going to be the guy who's going to be on all the offensive snaps, so when I'm in, I'm going to create the space. I'm going to block. I'm going to go downfield and create a little bit of a diversion so my other guys can be successful. I want to talk about that fourth quarter, things coming down to the wire, and another game where this defense has been tasked with stepping up to allow the offense to put this one away. Just how much have you guys developed on that side of the ball to help keep your team in close games like this one?
You heard Anthony talk about getting to the quarterback. Well, that shouldn't be an issue for this Dallas pass rush. Kirk Cousins has been dropped 20 times this season, and with the way this team likes to play, you might want to start getting familiar with that turf.
I love that you mentioned those rookies last as well. 3 of those guys, Deron Bland, Damone Clark, and Jake Ferguson, all taken on day 3 of this year's 2022 NFL draft. So when you talk about the Cowboys knowing how to draft well, today proved that so well. And you mentioned also the versatility of this team. 6 different guys getting on the scoreboard today. Michael Gallup with his first 2-touchdown performance of this season, his first also since 2020, so they're kind of hitting their stride at the right time.
When Tyron Smith suffered an avulsion fracture during training camp, Jerry Jones assured us we would see the future Hall of Famer on the offensive line before the end of the season. Now, as we know, he made his debut on Sunday against the Jaguars, but he was in a different position. And while he said there's plenty for him to improve on ahead of kickoff today, the rest of the offensive linemen were pretty impressed. Now, Tyron Smith was asked earlier in the week if he's had a chance to think about his future with the franchise and with the sport. He almost immediately said no, that he was just taking it day by day, one game at a time. He did say, however, unlike previous injuries in the past, this one he knew he would have the opportunity to come back and play, and that helped keep him motivated throughout the rest of his rehab.
Wide receiver 1 didn't have a perfect game. He had a huge drop that probably would have been a walk-in touchdown in the second quarter, but rather than stay down on himself, CD did what any number 1 would do. He bounced back. Cooper Rush orchestrating an 11-play, 89-yard drive in the fourth quarter in which Lamb completed 3 of the final 4 passes, including that one-handed grab in the corner for the go-ahead touchdown. The return to Green Bay marks head coach Mike McCarthy's first time to see his former quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The two had a complicated relationship, but it was never disrespectful. Both saying it always ended with a hug and an I love you.
I was going down my list of who I wanted to be my MVP of this game, and 3 out of the 4 came from the same room. I think you get the vibe that I'm going on. The tight ends were exceptional today, whether it was Jake Ferguson's hurdle, Peyton Hendershot's celebration into that Salvation Army kettle, even Dalton Schultz with a 2-touchdown performance. The term we like to throw around often is complimentary football.
Okay.
How impressed are you with the complimentary football that this team is playing? Malik, before the game, you talked about just staying focused, playing your ball, not worrying about playing your former team. You get out there and you have one of the best games of your career. I mean, what was working? What was your preparation before this one?
Coming up on the Blitz, you asked Cowboys Nation and Dallas delivered. That infamous franchise tag has officially been applied to Tony Pollard, but what does that mean for Ezekiel Elliott going forward? And have we seen the last of Dalton Schultz in a Cowboys jersey? We check in with Vice President of Player Personnel Will McClay, and we got Kyle Yeomans talking a little draft updates. All that and more coming your way next on the Blitz.
It's been so fun to see Deron Bland develop as the season has gone on. When I spoke to him earlier in the season after that Washington game, you could feel his nervousness. And then when I spoke to him earlier in the week, he had no issue telling me he's ready to step up to the plate. As for Kelvin Joseph, this is his time to show he's earned this spot. So we will see how those guys step up in tonight's game.
Dallas has consistently been called the underdogs this season. They'll go into this one no different. At least that's the narrative around the league. The players, however, are getting tired of hearing about the other team. And according to DeMarcus Lawrence, you got to put some respect on this Dallas defense. We've also spoken before, and something that we kind of share in common is that we both enjoy anime. I think you enjoy it more than I do.
I was about to say, I feel like you don't enjoy it that much.
I don't not enjoy
about it.
Okay,
you know,
Coach is calling me out. Micah Parsons with a quiet but effective night, but If you think we'd move on before talking about one of the biggest plays of the game, who else would put this one to bed than Trayvon Diggs? The game-ending pick in the final seconds marked his first interception of 2022. Head coach Mike McCarthy told us at the Combine earlier this year that one of the most important parts of the offseason for the rookie class is monitoring the jump from year 1 to year 2. Now, for some guys like Jake Ferguson or Tyler Smith, that jump seems a little bit easier given their role last season. But for other guys like Jalen Tolbert, that process is just a little bit slower. But he says it's all a part of his development as a Dallas Cowboy. And it seems like nobody is working harder in this offseason than Jalen Tolbert, and Cowboys Nation is quickly taking notice. Take a look at some of the replies in relation to a tweet that I posted last week about Tolbert. Starting with this one, that one Cowboys fan says, "Is it a hot take to think Jalen Tolbert can have an 800-plus yard season?" Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see.
Rookie tight ends Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot have both found the end zone for the Cowboys this season, but their relationship started long before they started wearing that Cowboys blue. And quite frankly, he said while he was a free agent, he was uncertain about his future here in Dallas. He was nervous about playing under a new system, under a new defensive coordinator. But 2 years later, you see the impact he's made on that Dallas Cowboys secondary. And when he suits up to play against his former team tonight, he's not worried about his former team. He's worried about making an impact with that star on his helmet. Duran, obviously an exciting game for you. You found out right before that you were going in. Walk me through that moment and what it was like to find out that you were going in the game. Well, I had the opportunity to sit down with DeMarcus Lawrence last week just to talk about his journey with the Dallas Cowboys. He's, of course, played all 9 of his years here in Dallas with America's team. And while he hasn't quite gotten the recognition that I personally think he deserves for his work this season, he says he's not really worried about that. He's just focused on one thing. That's getting his team to the Super Bowl.
Coming into this one, Tony Pollard was riding the high of back-to-back 100-yard games on the ground. But that wasn't enough for the running back. No. Tony Pollard decided to pop off on Sunday, showing his versatility as a pass catcher. Justin Tucker is really popular because he's an opera singer as well. Do you have any closet talents at all? Maybe not opera
I'd say
singing,
I'm closer to a sneakerhead than an opera singer, yeah.
For the last 4 weeks, Cooper Rush has proven you can find success if you're surrounded by people who believe in you. Mike McCarthy has put him in a position where he can feel comfortable leading the offense. And as he heads into the biggest game of his career so far, Cooper Rush isn't worried about the stats or how he stacks up against a formidable defense. He's just focused on being Cooper Rush, the quarterback. This is year 7 for you. When you look back at the journey that you've had so far, do you register that it's been 7 years in the NFL? His first multi-touchdown game since 2021 against Washington last December. So feed Zeke, but save a bite or two for Tony Pollard as well. Another productive day for him with 83 yards, completing that 1-2 punch.
Cowboys linebacker Damone Clark has only seen action in 3 games so far this season. But if you know what he's been through, you'd know just how impressive that is. After suffering the first and only injury of his career, the rookie is making the most of his time on the field.
First question, if you could have an unlimited supply of anything, what would it be?
Cheeseburgers.
What animal would you want to be?
A rich person's dog.
For so many of these young prospects, just going to the Combine is an accomplishment in itself, but obviously the goal is bigger than just showing off your skills for scouts and NFL owners. Kansas State running back Deuce Vaughn might not be the biggest or even the strongest guy in this year's draft, but he's got something a little bit more special that some of these guys don't have, a connection to a certain NFL scout on the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Blitz. Hailey Sutton, Bill Jones with you here. Bill, we talked about Tony Pollard. He received that franchise tag last week. And that begs the question, what is this organization going to do with Ezekiel Elliott? As we know, he signed that massive contract a few years ago, but now it seems like he's a little too expensive. The Cowboys are paying over $27 million in running back fees right now. If you could sit down with baby Peyton and you could tell him anything about life, whether it was football, just in general, what advice would you give little Peyton?
I would tell him just keep going because the storm's always going to end, and when that storm ends, you want to be ready to go.
Believe it or not, the New York Giants actually gave us the best Christmas gift of all. By beating Washington last week, the Cowboys are officially playoff bound.